Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories Podcast, People Helping People. I'm Shara Gosvick, your host. My guest today is Diane Sorensen. Diane is a speaker, a podcast host, and a transformational coach who specializes in parenting and relationships. She works with women, especially moms, and helps them learn how to go from chaos to connection. We talked about perfectionism, we talked about people pleasing, we talked about generational patterns that seem to be handed down and how we can recognize those patterns and how we get out of those. This was a really encouraging conversation, and I wish that you would send it to someone that you think it might be helpful to. Diane has a great coaching program, and she has resources on her website if you're interested. Thanks for
Diane,
being
thank
here.
you so much for being a guest. I appreciate Reese connecting us. And I watched your video on your website and I kind of know your backstory, but I think the work that you're doing is super important. I guess maybe as a mom of a child with special needs, you know, taking care of people and even when it's not necessarily something we're supposed to be doing, we kind of take on that role, I think, as moms, the nurturers and the carers. And so you work with moms, but you work with people who are perfectionists and people who are exhausted from doing that work, and you help them learn how to be free, how to set boundaries and be free. And I think that's so important, especially today. Tell me how you got started doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation to be here. I'm really grateful to be able to spend this time in this space with you here today. So, yeah, how did I come to what I'm doing? Well, something that I have been asking women about is what do you want less than and what do you want more of? Because if you ask what do you want? It's like, "Ooh, that's a loaded question," right? It's like, I don't know. So I started asking, what would you want less of and what would you want more of? And what I kept hearing over and over and over again, the through line was, I just want to get out of the chaos and feel more connected. And quite literally, that has been my life's journey
Yeah.
from chaos to connection. And so, how I got here was, my life didn't look like chaos. Growing up, it didn't look like chaos. I grew up in a typical Midwestern family, middle class. We looked like, you know, we were pretty normal. And when I got married and had children, it didn't look like chaos either. In fact, looked like I had it all together. It looked like we had it all together, right? The perfect family. I looked like I had it all together. And I even told myself I had it all together. The chaos really was inside. The chaos I had suppressed,
Mhm.
I had overcompensated for with positivity and being happy and achieving. If I was busy doing all the things that I was here and I was there, that meant I was important. I was doing important things. If I was achieving, I mattered.
Yeah.
And if I was productive, checking off all the things on the list, doing all the tasks, I had value. If I was helping others and solving your problems, I had value. And so it looked like, man, we had it all together. We had the house. I had I had the marriage, the family, the kids, the health, it's three beautiful children. I had the house. I had the career. We had financial security. And it looked like we had it all together. And that's what I told myself until I didn't. Doing life this way isn't sustainable, right? I was constantly proving that I belonged here and that I had value.
Yeah.
How I actually got here was a wake-up call. And that wake-up call, I may get emotional because every time I talk about it, it's like those emotions are right back, take me right back. And that's okay. But my wake-up call came in 5 words. your daughter, she's cutting herself. That over 20 years ago was just more than I could wrap my mind around.
Right.
And it was devastating. And not long after that, my then husband also came and asked for a divorce. Well, what about counseling? What about putting this together? Nope, don't want any of it. I want out. Which now I look back and I can really appreciate he was getting out of the chaos.
Yeah.
And it just further pulled that string. And how I started my journey here was with one question, and that was, how did we get here?
Right.
So that curiosity just cracked open the door enough to start seeing things and putting things together. And what I came to see were these patterns that I had internalized from my mother
Right.
and my growing up experiences, the pressure that I was talking about, the pressure to be good, the
Mhm.
pressure to make everybody around me happy. Because from a very early age, I realized I either make people happy or I make them unhappy. And unhappy was a threat. So I figured out ways of how I took on the job of making everybody around me happy. It made me feel safe.
Yeah.
And what I didn't know was I brought those patterns into my adult life and into my parenting life.
Yeah.
And unknowingly, I had handed the pressure to be good also to my children. And that came to this crashing halt when my daughter physically was showing me
Yeah.
these generational patterns and that this is not working. We
Right.
need to relook at how we got here and unravel. So that is literally how I got to where I am today in helping other women walk the path from the chaos in their life to feeling more connected in their life and to the people around them.
I appreciate you sharing your story and being so honest. And, I want to move on to other things, but I have a quick question. If there's a woman that's listening right now, or maybe something that you would say to yourself back then, something you know now that you would say to yourself, I think sometimes we get in that chaos, we get in these patterns like you talked about, and we don't even realize that they're unhealthy. They're so normal to us. You know what I mean? We just continue on.
Yeah, and they're actually rewarded, right?
Right.
In our culture, this
Yeah.
people pleasing, this doing everything right and good and perfect.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
So if there's somebody listening who maybe is in that chaos and maybe they just after listening to you talk about it realize that okay, wait, maybe this is not right. What could you encourage some woman right now?
Mm. I think the first thing I would say is to get curious. Ask yourself some questions and be honest. I think the first step is telling ourselves the truth.
Yeah.
You know, are you in a place in your life that feels chaotic? And who or what do you believe is creating the chaos in your life? Because, for a long time, I always thought it was other people and other things, right? If
Mhm.
it was my children, it was my partner, it was my mother, it was the education system I worked for, as I'm a former teacher. It was all of these things, but I am the common denominator in every single one of those things. So it's really about starting to have the willingness
Mm.
to, instead of looking at them, to turn that light and look inwards. What do you want them to do? And then ask yourself, turn it around. I want me to. I just want my kids to listen. Now
Right.
turn it around. I want me to listen.
Oh,
Me and maybe to them. What's their behavior telling you that not listening isn't a child problem? It's in the relationship. And then I say that, and then people are like, oh, no, I'm doing the relationship wrong.
I like the healthy way you look at that because there's so many things that we could blame ourselves for and go down this spiral of not ever helping anybody because we make it all about us. But I like the healthy way you talk about looking at that. Be curious.
Yeah, and what I did eventually when with my daughter, she was cutting herself on the outside, and that behavior was information,
Right.
right? It was saying, "This is not working." And when I could turn that around and say, "How is this a mirror for me?" I could say, "Oh, I have been doing the same thing to myself on the inside."
Yeah.
I was doing it emotionally to me, cutting myself down, calling myself names, starving or whatever it was I had to do to gain approval
Yeah.
and please other people. So I thought, "Oh, wow. I've been doing this for years. My mother probably did it and all the mothers before that. And she is showing me something needs to change."
Right. Right. I know that you work a lot with parents now. What is a common struggle that you see parents dealing with right now?
Probably one of the main things is listening,
Yeah.
being heard. And again, that is, how am I listening to me? What I help parents with is building a relationship with each other. And rather than, okay, I'm in the adult, I'm in the adult role. You are the child, you are the child role, and this is how this goes. We give all the power to the parents, they know everything. And, the child is just supposed to listen. We're supposed to give them information. We're like downloading this information into them as if they're a robot, and then they're just supposed to, you know, go from there. And the difference is in what I learned in my journey is relational skills.
Why do you think connection is so important? And what are some ways that you work with parents to make better connections with their kids?
Yeah, it all starts here with us. What I really do is walk women back home to themselves.
Mm,
So and then here's the thing, and this is what I have experienced as I become more visible in the world, as I see myself more. And what I mean by that is as I start recognizing these patterns of, avoid conflict. If there was one thing I learned growing up, it was this: do not upset anyone under any circumstance. And so I would avoid conflict at all cost. And it did cost a
yeah.
lot. It cost relationships. Don't rock the boat. Don't ruffle feathers. Keep the peace. All of
Right.
these, all this, that is not you. That is not who you are. Those are adaptations that
Mm,
you learned to use to feel safe in an
yeah.
environment that we normalize.
Yeah.
And it did get you from here. It did get me from here, or from childhood to here. But then it wasn't going to get me from where I was to where I want to go.
Right.
And so it's looking at those, where do those show up? I use the drama triangle and the empowerment dynamic a lot in my work to show people, or for them to discover where these roles are showing up. Where are they being the victim? Where are they being the persecutor and blaming others for the way they feel or why their life is like this? Where are they being the rescuer and fixing things for other people? And really, that's about getting away from these feelings of not enough, or, some version of that. And walking the walking across the bridge to the empowerment dynamic, which is where connection lives. It's where boundaries live. The reactive patterns live in the drama triangle.
Yeah.
Empowered connection lives in the empowerment dynamic, where we're taking ownership. of those patterns. We're recognizing them and then taking ownership so that, we're not blaming now our parent. I mean, and, there's some of that whole journey to go through, but we're taking ownership of them. That no, I didn't choose to be a people pleaser and a perfectionist. Um, and it is now mine to work with and to work through.
Yeah.
And so we do that. And so, that's challenges us. And then we coach ourselves through the resistance, because resistance is always going to come up when we try to create change
Yeah.
in our life.
Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that. You mentioned boundaries, and I want to talk about that for a minute because sometimes people are hesitant when they hear that word. It automatically causes them to tense up, and they don't like that word. Explain what a boundary is and why it's healthy.
Yeah. And before I do that, I just want to say, and yes, I agree with you. It's boundaries is the generational interrupt, the pattern interrupt. That's why we don't like
Mm.
it. It's been familiar. It feels uncomfortable. And when I learned boundaries, and I was in this journey and I kept hearing the word boundaries too. And I got curious though. I thought I knew what boundaries were, but I'm not sure I do. And so I went searching. And anyway, I found a boundary coach, and I learned all about boundaries. I got certified in boundary work because it absolutely changed my life.
Yeah.
And it was so liberating. And then as I started this work, I had other people telling me, like marketers or, all these experts saying, oh, don't say boundaries because people don't like boundaries.
Right.
And maybe the people pleaser I'm like, okay, what should I say? You know? And there was so much noise out there. And finally I came to, you know what? Boundaries changed my life.
It's not a bad word.
I'm going to talk about boundaries because I
Yes.
want people to know really what they are and
Right.
what they aren't. And the people that go, "Ooh, I don't want boundaries," that's fine. Then they're not my people.
Right. You hide the word
So
until you have to set them.
yeah. So I say I'm a boundary and empowerment coach, and I work with mothers. I channel it to motherhood, relationships, and generational healing
Yeah.
because it is the generational interrupt. So what boundaries are is being able to express yourself from your truth, not from your wounds.
Mm.
So the people pleasing, the perfectionism, the keeping the peace, the don't say the wrong thing, don't upset anyone. That's behavior that's coming from the wound, and it creates chaos.
Yeah.
And so boundaries is the ability to set and maintain your truth. It's able to express your truth. Now, there's boundary work, what I call boundary work, that needs to be done to have the ability to do that. And that is the work that I help women with.
Yeah. And it's so important. It's so important. It's not a bad word. It is, I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna be who I was created to be. And this is the line right here. And you can love me for it or you don't have to accept it. But this is what I'm gonna do. And it's hard. It's hard in relationships to do that, but it's necessary sometimes.
And it's a journey. And I really
Right.
want people to hear that. If you have difficulty with boundaries, then hello, you're human.
Right.
All of us do.
Yeah.
Right? Because historically, we really weren't raised on boundaries. It was more traditionally, I say our traditional system is primitive,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so boundaries can be really scary. It and here's what it does. This is why people don't like it, I think, from my perspective. And I was the same way is that it pushes that fear button of I'm not good enough.
Mm.
Because if I set a boundary and somebody doesn't listen to it, then I feel like crap. I'm not good enough. And even if we don't have that thought in our head, we feel it in our body that nobody cares, nobody listens, nobody helps. But it's
And
because we're stuck in these patterns, these invisible patterns and roles. And so untangling that is truly freedom.
and
It
it's a lot it is a lot of work, like you said, because like I said, sometimes we don't even realize we've been doing it for so long, we don't even realize it's
Yeah,
unhealthy.
and it's a journey. It's a willingness to go on a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the thing with motherhood. I wanted to be a mother from the time I can't remember a time when I did not want to be a mother. That was I wanted to be a mother. And what I didn't know was that when I became a mother, it would bring up all of my internal insecurities, which
Mhm.
there were many.
Yeah.
So I couldn't figure out, I wanted to be a mother forever. And now that I'm a mother, it doesn't feel the way I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
Because what we don't realize is that it's bringing up all of our past wounds, all of our past insecurities. And so, but we're looking at our child and we're going, why can't this child just listen? Why can't, we put it on them. But here's the thing. You get the exact child who's going to help you evolve and grow.
Right.
And it doesn't feel comfortable.
I was gonna ask you about motherhood. What in all of your journey as being a mom and then working with moms, what do you wish moms understood more about themselves?
That they're already good. We have this standard. Here's what I want to say. I have come to this. Motherhood is not a role to play or a standard to meet. It is a lifelong relationship
Yeah.
calling us into truth, presence, and self leadership.
Mm, that's good.
And those three things are the things I help women do. And it's beautiful, it's messy, it's painful, and it's liberating, and it's joy. It's all of it. It's
It
all of
is.
it.
It is. I've said many times that parenthood, motherhood, parenthood is one of the most difficult and most rewarding things you can do. It's the hardest, but it's the best. I mean, it really is.
Right. Yeah, and I really think we need to come to an understanding that we are not shaping our children. We are partnering with them
Mhm.
to live a life that we want to live. And what is that? And how can we move the needle towards that? So for me growing up, what I learned early on, or what I see now as I look back, is when I was just being me, when I was just being a child, authentically me, bad things happened. I got in trouble, I got criticized. And that what I am now on a journey to be able to now show up as my authentic self. But that can be at times really, really scary
Yeah.
because of that criticism piece. I open myself up to the risk of being criticized. But the more I do it, I realize even if I'm criticized by somebody else, I don't die.
Right.
They're still here.
That's
And the
really
and the really it comes back to us. If I'm criticizing myself, then somebody else's judgment sticks. So it's kind of like Velcro.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing it, I'm holding one part of the Velcro, and then somebody else comes along and criticizes me or judges me in some negative way, and their criticism sticks to me because I'm already holding the other side. So the work is for me to have an abundance of self-acceptance, self-love, self-trust, self-respect, and that is the boundary work.
or
Wait,
had it that
people
way.
say, "Well, I don't want boundaries. I don't like boundaries. That makes me uncomfortable." You could ask, "So what about self-respect? Do you not want self-respect? Does that make you uncomfortable and you don't want that? How about self-acceptance?" And we've learned to be acceptable by doing all the things for somebody else, and that's the rescuer, the fixer.
I've not ever heard it explained that way, but that's really good. The Velcro analogy, I love that. Tell people about your coaching program. How do they find you and what happens when they work with you in a coaching program?
Yeah. So my coaching program has, my podcast is called Chaos to Connection. And like I said, it's quite literally my life. And my coaching has really grown out of that, helping women get out of the chaos, which is these invisible patterns. So we identify those, acknowledge those, work through them. And here's the beautiful thing that happens as we do that. As we dissolve these internal barriers, women discover that they have the power to create sustainable, lasting change in their life. And that is the beauty of it. That is the liberation. So people can find me. You can come on over to the podcast, Chaos to Connection. You can visit the website, dianesorensen.net. There's free resources there. One of the resources I would point listeners to is the drama and empowerment resource that I have. I have a booklet, some journal prompts that explains the roles. So work through that. Um, and once you do that, once you get that resource, and I could even give you the link to put it in the show notes if you're
Sure.
open to that. Once you get that resource, then you can email me with any questions, any comments, and we can be in contact with each other. Yeah, and to work with me, I work one-on-one
Okay.
with women, and then we have created this community that we also do some group calls together. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, yeah, because I do find that healing is accelerated when we can come together and really be in the presence of other people who are also doing this work, and we don't feel alone.
Right.
Because it is a feeling of, what's wrong with me? I'm so alone in this. Where when we come together, it's like, whoa, these other, we can all hear each other in each other's story. We can all see ourselves in other
Sure.
people's stories. So
Yeah, it's always encouraging to know that somebody else is going through the same thing, that it's not just me. I'm not the only one dealing with this. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we go?
I not that I can think of. You can also follow me on Instagram. And yeah, I would love you to send me a message. I'm there at dianesorensen.bb. And yeah, just send me a message. Let me know what you got out of today. Or like I said, get the resource and then email me.
Sure.
Yeah, that's it.
That's awesome. I appreciate you being a guest today. This was great. Thank you for talking to me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This was
Absolutely.
wonderful. Talk soon.
Okay, bye bye.